Hi, I'm Vincent Chun, founder of Real4Music, helping artists and musicians to better promote their music, get it out there, and actually have more fun in the process. Anyway, have you ever had any of these challenges? Have you ever had the challenge of truly engaging and connecting with your fans at the level you would most like to? Or you know you could be doing a hell of a lot better? Because after all, couldn't we all? Or have you ever had the challenge of experiencing like a limitation in your fans, such that your fans seem to be limited to your friends and your family and friends of friends? Or have you ever had the challenge of having that limitation on your fans and still there, even though you've had great publicity, such as being featured on the radio, in magazines and street press, but even though you've had such great publicity, you still, have that limitation in your fans still there? Well, so have I, and so have many of my friends who are artists and musicians. Which is why I spent the last couple of years really looking for the solutions to these problems. Really looking at ways that we can really improve the music industry and make it more inclusive and make it more supportive and accommodating for artists, and also more inclusive and participative and engaging for fans. And as part of that, I've been working with artists throughout the last couple of years on their marketing and promotion, particularly on their websites. And the reason why I started with the websites to begin with was because the one thing I noticed is that the website really is the core of all your marketing and your promotion of your music, because it really is the one thing that people look for when they want to find out more about you, and it's the one thing that everything links back to. So yeah, I guess that's why I started with that. But even so, in trying to find ways to really improve the music industry and make it more, make it have the kind of impact on that we really need to make in order to get to where we want to go. The one thing that I kept coming back to was the sense of business and entrepreneurship. And yeah, so I spent thousands of dollars and a lot of my time on learning as much as I could about business and like business and entrepreneurial like techniques and marketing techniques and that kind of stuff, and also learn about the music business. However, there is one challenge with learning about the music business in isolation, and that is if you only ever learn about things within like the music business within the framework of how it's always been done and how it currently is, then how do you ever learn to make it better? So that was really what I've been focusing mostly on. And yeah, I'd like to share with you now what I kind of describe as the old world of music versus the new world of music. And that the old world of music tends to be very heavily focused towards the industry, and that the notion that you have to be signed to a record label in order to be successful. And oh, speaking of which, do you know what a record label really is? A record label is really nothing more than just a marketing agency. Now, for those of you who studied marketing, you've got the 4 P's of marketing, the 4 main elements of marketing. The first being product, right? Well, the record label's product is you, the artist. And then the second element is the pricing. They set the pricing of the recorded music that they sell, and then they do the promotion. So they run the advertising, and they push it to the radio stations, and they really push it to the radio stations, right? Get it played 5 or 6 times a day to turn it into a hit. And yeah, they do the distribution. So they ship it to stores and all that. So really, a record label is really nothing more than a marketing agency when you think about it like that. So yeah, the other point I wanted to make is that how a lot of my friends have had great publicity, but they still struggle with their fan reach and their engagement. The reason I believe for that is because the one thing that's missing from a lot of publicity is a sense of connection and engagement. Because ultimately, like the one thing that's at the top of your potential fans' minds when they're reading articles in, say, Beat Magazine, is that they're thinking, how does this relate to me, and how can I relate to this? And I'm sure you'd agree, like, how often have you read an article in Beat Magazine that's actually led to you finding out more? I'd suggest it probably doesn't happen as often as we'd like. And yeah, and that's because I guess the one thing that you need to keep in the top of your mind is how does this relate to the reader? And yeah, a bit of a golden nugget there for you next time you're doing publicity, eh? So yeah, at the top of your fans' minds are, how can I relate? because ultimately they do want to relate. And I'd like to share with you now this framework that I've come up with based on that, kind of like the Real4Music framework, if you like. And hopefully through the magic of editing, we'll get a better image up on the video for you. But anyway, in the middle of the diagram, I've got the artist, and that should be obvious because, artists create the music industry, and, they kind of are the centerpiece of the music industry. So, and the main points I want to point out here is the sense of collaboration, the point on collaboration, because ultimately, if we're going to have the kind of impact that we really need to make on the music scene, it's going to come from collab. The best way to do that will be through collaboration and co-creation. Even co-running events and that kind of stuff, because yeah, that will be the best way to have an impact. Because as individuals, we can only do so little, but together we can do so much more. Yeah, and anyway, I've got the support. I think is really an important element because there's one thing that we all need. We need more of in the music industry. I'm sure you'll agree is a bit more love and support, isn't it? And yeah, a sense of contribution, because one of the challenges of approaching the music industry, like if you approach it with too much ego and like being all about me, then it's not really going to work because people don't really care about that as much. Pardon me. And yeah, and so really you want to approach it from the sense of what can I contribute to the music scene? What can I contribute to music lovers' livelihoods? And at the top of the diagram, I've got fans, and the reason why they're at the top is because they really are king. They are the most important element of the music business. So that's why they're at the top. And in order to really have the impact on the music scene that we really need to make, the best way to involve fans is like really through encouraging inclusiveness and participation, because ultimately, music lovers and fans, they really want to feel like they're a part of something. We all do. And, it's one of the strongest human drivers is a sense of belonging. So they ultimately want to feel like they're a part of something, and they really do want to be a part of the music industry. So um, that's why I think it is important to foster inclusiveness and participation, and also contribution, and also a sense of celebrating the music rather than merely being a consumer, because ultimately it's there to be celebrated. And the industry down the bottom, so industry essentially like your record labels, media, bookers, essentially the organizations that take your music and exploit it and do stuff with it. So yeah, and they're at the bottom. Now, the one thing I'd like to point out now is that if you take the industry side of things at the bottom and you remove it, notice how everything else still makes perfect sense. It's still a closed loop, it still works. And yeah, whereas if you take the fans out of the equation and focus on the industry only, then there's no point to it. So the fans really are the single most important element. They are the driving force behind the whole music industry. And as a side note, if you take the artist out of the equation, then you get, mainstream manufactured commercial crap and reality TV. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah. So anyway, now that I've showed you the framework, and let me share with you how people typically stuff it up. So the most obvious way people stuff it up is by focusing too much on the industry side of things and ignoring the fan side of things. Because ultimately, as I mentioned, I pointed out before, it's like the fans are the most important element, and the industry probably one of the least important. Not that they're not important, of course, because they do support everything else, but they're not like a core element, so to speak. And yeah, the other way that people stuff it up is through approaching it from the sense of competition, because really, I wonder if reality TV comps and band competitions have anything to do with that mindset, but there really is no point in competing because we've all got something unique to contribute. So yeah, by collaboration and co-creating and like supporting one another, we're gonna actually get have a much greater impact altogether than we can if we're competing as individuals. Cool. So now that I've shared with you that Real4Music framework and how people typically stuff it up, here are some things that you can do after you finish watching this video to really get the most out of what I just shared with you. Firstly, say thank you to your fans, because a little bit of appreciation really goes a long way. And as I mentioned before, your fans really are the single most important element of what you do. And yeah, I'm sure you'd agree that without them, it'd be pretty difficult to keep doing for us to keep doing what we do. So um, thank your fans for say thanks to your fans for being part of your journey and being a part of what you do, and also for being a part of the local music scene. And because ultimately, without them, it'd be pretty difficult to have a local music scene. Uh, Secondly, I'd like you to think about who else might you know who could really benefit from some of the insights that I shared with you in this video, and actually take what I've shared with you and share it with them as well. Because ultimately, none of this is going to work if we're working in isolation. If we're going to have the impact that we really need and want to make on the local music scene, then we're going to want to be working together collaboratively, and that's the only way it's going to happen. So yeah, if you know of anybody else who could really benefit from this, and any other artists, then do share this with them, because ultimately, we're all in this together, and that's that that's the really the most likely way that it's going to work. And finally, uh, if you haven't already signed up to the Real4Music community, then I do encourage you to do so on the website. And yeah, I will be adding some, hopefully in the near future, some useful insights that you might find useful. And um, ultimately, like, you are the single most important element of what I do as well. So, uh, like, I'd love to. I'd also love to hear some of your feedback. So, because ultimately, you are the greatest driving force for what I do. So, and yeah, I'd love to be contribute to what you do as well, and be a part of what you're doing. So, yeah. And finally, if you're you know if you're interested in working together, then I am offering like free consultations where I will genuinely help you out during those consultations. And yeah, throughout the process, I'll genuinely help you out, and we'll figure out whether or not we want to continue working together. And if not, then cool. But ultimately, you've got nothing to lose. And yeah, and I'd love to really contribute to what you do as well, and help out, and offer a bit of help, and you know you know and reach out to you really as a friend as well. So yeah, and ultimately, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. And I guess I'd also really love to. I really do look forward to touching base with you, and actually rocking up to one of your gigs, and I'll be the dude up the front, dancing like a nutty maniac that I am. And yeah, I'd really love to check out some of your music, because that's really, there's nothing more that I love more than that. So yeah, cheers, and keep rocking out, and yeah, rock on. How do you switch this thing off?